So we'll see if this works. Okay, I'm going to start off with actually WordPad. If it will let me. Suppose I could do it with Google Docs too. Google Docs, then I could probably share it easier. But since I'm here. All right, so what I want to do is just talk about what data warehousing is. Has anybody ever worked with data warehousing? Is that big enough to read from the back?
Yeah.
What kind of ideas do you have about it, if any? And just want to get a general.
Main unit.
Why?
We talk about data warehousing.
All right, well, so they don't do it as much as they used to, though they still do it, partially because NoSQL has become bigger, right? But with it, when you're using mostly structured SQL databases, data warehousing is a process where you rearrange all the data in a way that makes it more amenable to statistical searches and things. And it can come from multiple databases. We're only going to do it from one, but the data from our data warehouse can come from multiple databases and multiple sources. And in fact, in a really big data world, there might be a combination of data warehouse and NoSQL, together. So data warehousing, the first step is really to think about what kinds of questions you have. What is it that you're looking for in the data? Now, you don't want to just limit it to that because you're going to be, you want to explore too. It's not just answering certain queries. It's actually looking for connections that you didn't know existed. But what kind of questions do you have of the data is kind of where you would start. Okay, and it's also the part that I'm probably going to skip right now, but it's actually a really important part when you start thinking about the data and you start to organize it. All right, so the normal relational structure of a database isn't ideal for the kinds of queries that the data warehousing is good for. So generally, the next step is to actually create the data warehouse. And what that involves is taking all the tables, the relational tables, and restructuring them into two kinds of tables. Dimensions, which basically store information of, they're basically descriptive. Dimensions, so which store fields that describe data. And facts, which is basically data that can be aggregated, right? Meaning it can be summed and counted and averaged and things like that. So it's usually numeric data. But the thing is, we basically are going to rearrange the whole database. And I'm going to go through that process, and it's complicated. One reason I think NoSQL is starting to gain the edge in big data is that setting up these data warehouses is really complicated. But there's still a lot of this around. If you have relational data, you probably want to do this. All right, and then so we'll do that. Basically, there's a couple of layouts for this. There's a star layout and a snowflake layout. It's not real important you remember this. The snowflake layout. What do you think a star layout would be like?
Some top with arms.
Yeah, basically a star layout is basically you have a center fact table surrounded by dimension tables. If you start to get a little bit more relational about your data warehouse and you have more than one fact table and dimensions ago, then it's a snowflake layout. So you have, instead of one center, you have a couple of different centers with clusters of dimensions around them. We're going to do a star layout. It's much easier. I just wanted to mention that. And then the next thing we will do after we create the data warehouse is we're going to create an SSIS, remember that, package to populate it. And the reason you would do this, and this is actually a very common use of SSIS, is that it's rare. You generally do not want your data warehouse running from your live database. One of the options here is to do all these dimensions and stuff as views, right? And have it live, and that can be done. But the analysis that you're going to do could affect the performance of your base database. So typically they don't make it live. They create a separate database and they use the SSIS to take the data on a regular basis, but not, like at the end of a day or once a week. How often do you think you need the data? And repopulate it through the SSIS. So you create a package that you can run whenever you want to repopulate your database with more current data. Does that make sense? So we'll do that. And then you do the analysis part. And you can create cubes. There's all sorts of tools in SQL Server. There's also other tools that you can get. Python, for odd reasons, has become a language for doing this kind of thing. I was reading about why, and they said there's nothing inherent in Python to make it better at it than other languages. It's just that the people that do this kind of stuff like Python.
So it's a complete coincidence.
Yeah, well, and then because they like Python, they build libraries, right? So they keep adding libraries that make it easier to do this kind of analysis. The reason they like Python, I think, is that it's fast. You don't have to worry about semicolons and things like that. And you don't have to worry when you're doing this kind of thing about, security. I mean, you're doing it in-house and things. So it's a compiled language like Java or C# is generally considered more secure because the core code is binary, when somebody comes across it. Whereas the scripting language, it gets converted, but the script is more available generally. All right, so we're going to do all of these things. We're going to create the data warehouse. We're going to do the SSIS package, and then we'll try to do the analysis cube. And I'll be honest, this is where my expertise starts to get fuzzy. But we'll do what we can. Also, this is another inherent drawback of my databases. They don't have a real rich data set to do this kind of analysis. We'll do some, but I mean, it's hard to get any in-depth analysis with my kind of featherweight data sets. Questions on that? So I think we'll do both. We'll do Community Assist together, and then we'll decide if you want to walk through Metro all together or if you think you guys can do it on your own.
Business intelligence.
Yeah, this is business intelligence. Technically, when you look at that suite, they consider the reports and the SSI, all of that as part of their business intelligence suite. But this is the part where you're actually trying to figure out information that's really relevant to your business. So I'm going to start SQL Server. And as I said, SQL Server contains a lot of these tools, and then the data tool part of SQL Server contains a lot of these tools. Part of the reason why they contain all these tools is that people in the past would go buy second-party software to do it. And Microsoft seems to dislike people by second parties, so they keep buying those companies and incorporating them into the software that they have. So I'm going to do a new query. And let's hope I can do this. So when we look at the tables, what do you think we would most want to analyze? Do what? Oh, well, I'm in community assist.
Who asked for how much money for what?
Yeah, I think the grants, the grant and the grant review would probably be the core of our fact table, right? Because that's where most of the data is. Donations possibly, but I think it's not as rich as grants for looking at. And you could do both, but it would even be more interesting if the donations were somehow tied to the grants, which they're not.
The donations are just given to.
They're just given, they're not given for a particular reason, they're just given. Which is actually fairly typical of a charity. They don't usually want you to direct it. Even the Red Cross kind of doesn't like you to direct it, although they will sometimes for certain emergencies. They would rather just have it in a big fund and let themselves decide where it goes, right? So what I'm going to do, we're going to create, there's also a database that you can get, which maybe we'll download, probably not right now, but AdventureWorks. So AdventureWorks is Microsoft's sample database. It's a database about they sell bicycle parts globally. So the neat thing about AdventureWorks when you do it is parts of it are in Hebrew and parts of it are in Arabic and parts are in Japanese. So they have all those languages in the database, plus all the parts and things. They also have a data warehouse that you can download ready-made. And we might do that particularly if our analysis is really bad. Because there's more to analyze there. Did you cut yourself? So I'm going to, actually, before I do create database, I am going to say use master. And I'm going to say go. And I'm going to say if exists. And I'm going to say select name from sys.databases. I don't know why it's not coming up there, dude. Where name equals community assist, and I'm going to add a DW to it for data warehouse. So if it exists, we're going to, oops, begin, not begin. And I'm doing this because I'm likely to, I'm likely to screw this up more than once. And it's easier just to drop it and rerun it than it is to try to fix the things individually. Drop database community assist DW. Make sure you drop community assist DW, not community assist. And then I'm going to say go. I put this at the top of most of my scripts. Again, a lot of times it's easier to fix by just fixing it and then rerunning the whole thing. Don't want to do this if you have tons of data in here. But we don't have any data in here, right? Questions on that? And I will post this. There is a version online, but it's for the old Community Assist. So it'll take some adjustments. So I'm going to, first of all, create, not yet. I'm going to run the whole script at once. I mean, you could, if you want, you could run it bit by bit. It's up to you. So I'm going to create the dimension tables. Questions? You look like you have a question. And slow me down if you need. So typically these are named. So I'm going to do create table. I'm going to call it dim employee. Not because they're dim, but because it's a dimensions.
It could be both.
But
It could be
they
both.
could be both, yeah. So what kind of information do we want about the employee? Now this is for analysis. So do we really need their name? I don't think we really need their name. We probably need, so actually what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to do a field called dim employee key, and I'm going to make it an identity 1-1. I'm not going to do any primary keys or things here. I'm going to do them later, all with alter tables, and there's a reason for that. Ultimately, when we do the SSIS, we're going to have to drop all of our constraints. So what you basically go through is you drop all your constraints, you delete all the data in the tables, and then you repopulate them. Right? So, and then you'll re-add the constraints. That's sort of the pattern for the SSIS. So it makes it a lot easier if your primary keys and foreign keys are all done as alters, because then you can just run that part of the script when you re-add them. Right? So I think we need the actual employee key, which we'll just do as an int. Maybe the hire date. I don't know that we need that, but let's do that. Do we need their salary? Depends on what we're analyzing. I'm going to do the position name, though, because we might care about the position.
And salary is more important than
It might be. Well, let's add it just in case. So let's do employee hire date. Oh, we got that. Annual salary. And that is money. And then position name is Invarcar 255. And that comes from a different table, but we can do that. So I think that's my employee dimension. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I should add into that I don't have. I wonder if I should have the person key as well.
what information does the person to give you?
It's basically their name.
Your name, email address.
Yeah, so we don't really need that, I don't think. So let's do create table. Oops. So let's do like the client. These are the people that'll do it. Again, we don't necessarily need their, so I'm going to do dim client key int identity. These will be the primary keys, and they're not the primary keys of the underlying tables. One of the things you'll see in these dimension tables, you bring in the stuff from whatever table they are over here, right? They don't necessarily, it's not like you're just moving the tables over singly. The client person key is probably relevant.
Is the client the donor?
What? They're the one, not the donors, they're the ones that are asking for money. If you have a different name than client, you could do. What else would I want to know about them? I don't need to know their first name, and zip code. Their zip code might
Is
be
that your
useful.
person?
Yeah. We have their person key. Do we need to know their zip code? We could do that. I don't think it'll teach us anything because my zip codes are arbitrary. But zip codes are often used for analysis to figure out what areas, like when you're doing your discounts at Safeway or something, they don't have a lot of, some of them times they have your information, but mostly they have your zip code and they can sort of see where people are coming from.
Should that be person address there?
We don't need their whole address. Well, yeah, I think it is person, address, zip. Although here's another thing. The fields here do not have to have the same names as they do in the tables. As long as you can remember what goes with what. So let's look under person, address. I just want to see how big it is. Oh, I did 255. Why did I do 255? I think I've looked at that before and wondered that. I think that's all we really need to know about the client. Is there anything else that you can think of? As I said, one reason I've done this way is if we find out we screwed up, we can drop it all. What?
Verify the client's last name.
But for this kind of analysis, I don't think we need their last name.
Do we need like?
Because we're only going to look at things in terms of statistical groupings and things. Yeah.
Are you going to do the entry date since you did the hire date for the employee?
We're not doing specific.
We will want that date, but I don't think it goes into the client.
Okay.
So what date were you thinking of?
The entry date?
Oh, the person entry date?
Mhm.
Maybe.
And would there be like a grants that we've requested or received?
Yeah, but that's not going to be in the client. There will be another dim table for the grant request or whatever. And actually, the main grant tables will be the fact table. We could put the person date entered. I was thinking that you were thinking of the grant request date, but that isn't, yeah. And I just did it as date, or did I do it as date time?
Did date time.
If you don't use the fields, it's not a big deal with the dimension. It's more of a big deal in the fact table. There is the thing that if you don't have a field, you can't query by it, right? So it might be better to be over abundant than under. So I'm going to create so what do I want to call these? So I got well, I guess I'll call it dim grant types or dim grant. I'm not sure. As I said, I meant to rehearse this quite a bit this weekend, but given everything else that was going on, I didn't get it. So I was just looking at my old scripts and they have to be adjusted. So I'm going to do dim grant type key int identity. This is just so we know, oops, 1, 1. I'm going to give it the grant type key and the grant type name. Do we want, I don't have it in the other one, but I wonder if we want the maximum and minimum. I don't know that I'm going to analyze for those. What do you guys think? Every grant has a max and a min. It actually has a one-time max and a lifetime max. All right, we'll leave them out. I'm just seeing if there's anything I have left out. So we want a description of the grant itself, as opposed, this is just a description, so not the DIM, I'm just going to call it DIM grant. Does this make any sense? As I said, we're just trying to get things that are describing. So I'll do the DIM grant key, int identity 11, grant key, int what else do I have? Yeah, we might want.
Which is the grant key, is that what you're referencing when you say grant key?
No, grant key is what grant it is. Like, so it's like one, just in the grant table, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. It's just a numbering of them. The grant type key is different.
There's not just a grant table.
Well, there will be a grant. There will, the fact table will cover a lot of this.
So you're not the grants. Those are the grants that are given.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to hold this for a moment. We may rethink this, as I said. If we do this, we're getting a little bit, all of this will come together. It's a little bit weird. I think there's only one more DIM table that I want. Create table. Typically, there is a DIM date. And this is because almost every analysis you do is based on some kind of date time. The first thing I'm going to do is dim date key, and it's also just going to be an int identity 11. And then I am going to, we have to decide, do we want the approval date or the request date? Because we really should build it off of like one date. Let's do it off the approval date, I guess.
So that verifies that it actually.
Yeah, that was actually given. Yeah. So let's do grant approval date, and this is under grant review. It's actually called grant review date. Oh, again, you can change things. And I wanted to see its date time. So I'm going to do grant year as an int, and then grant month int. We could probably, I think that's good though. We don't need to go any finer grain. So grant year and grant month will obviously have to populate by using functions, right? Okay. So the question, I guess, is if we have everything that we need to describe the grants when we look at them. We have the employee that's involved. We might actually have more about the employee than we need. We have the client. We have their zip code, their date that they were entered, and what person they're related to. And the person key is, I think, important because it ultimately relates to the grant. We've got the grant type. We've got the grant itself, which part of me says we need more there, but I don't know. And then we've got the date.
Is there a grant name? Like,
No.
not grant type name, but description?
So there's a request thing, but I'm not sure we'd want to see the individual request things. You know, when we're aggregating, you wouldn't want to see why they're asking for the grant. Now, you might do a different analysis for that, right? We might actually look at that for in the afternoon class, probably not today, but maybe Thursday, for whole text catalogs or full text catalogs, because you can actually go through and pull individual words from a thing if you want. So I'm going to try the fact table. Create table. I'm going to call it fact grant. And this is a naming convention that you'll see. It's not an absolute law, but typically dimension tables have a dim in front of them, and the fact tables have fact in front of them. So I am going to, the first thing that this is going to have is the dim, I'm going through this dim employee key. So one of the things that the fact table has is that its primary key is a composite key made up of all the primary keys of all the dimension tables. Right, so we're going to go through and we're going to do dim employee key int. I'm just looking to see dim client key. Dim grant type key. So, and then we've got dim grant key. And dim date key. So actually when we do a primary key, it will consist of all of those. Then we need to think of what can be allocated. So we basically want the grant amount, right? And then we want the grant allocation amount. And grant amount is money. there anything else that we want? I think on the grant, we do want, we've got grant type key up there. Let's see how it works. If it doesn't work, as I said, we can destroy it all and do it over. Is there anything else we would want to have that we could measure? I mean, we can do some counts and stuff.
Is grant amount going to be the same as grant request amount?
Oh, yes. Let's just do that.
But it still doesn't matter what you name
It doesn't really matter what you name it, no. I mean, you can name these, you don't have to name these things that the same as the fields underneath, but it's sometimes easier if you do, because then you know kind of what goes to what. What I'm not sure of is whether you would want to do something under here like actually, this is going to be hard enough to populate. I was thinking you could do some pre-aggregation, like count or something. I think the fact table could be a real pain to write a query to populate.
Tables stored.
What?
Where are the dim tables stored?
They're all going to be in a new database. So actually, ultimately, when we publish all of this, if we do, it'll end up in the, you know how we have, if I do connect up here, there's database engine and there's analysis services. Ultimately, if we publish it, it'll copy the database to analysis services. All right, questions on these? The next thing is to write a little script at the bottom to assign the keys.
Are we done with that grant table?
I think so. I mean, it's possible that there's other stuff we could aggregate, but I'm not sure what. We'll keep it somewhat simple.
I have the dim grant table.
What about the dim grant?
Everything with it.
I think so for now.
You said we're gonna create a database for these to go to?
Yeah, so right at the beginning where it says, oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would have noticed that after they all ended up in master. And it doesn't exist yet, so that's always red underlined until you've created it. Good eye. We dropped a database that didn't exist, but we never created it. Okay, are we ready for the... So let's do the primary keys, and then we'll do the foreign keys. There's a lot of them. So we'll start with the first table, of which was employee. Of course, I can kind of tell. Alter table dim employee. Add constraint. And we'll give it a name because we're going to have to drop it later. So we'll do it pkdim employee, primary key, dim employee key. Okay. And then we'll do the same alter table dim client And you could probably, if you want to, just copy that. And then change it to pkdim client, dim client key. And then it was grant type. So dim grant type. So after grant type was grant. Okay, and then the last, set everything except for the dim date. So we need the dim date.
See,
Yeah,
the reason you're doing the constraint primary key is instead of declaring the table system primary key to begin with.
yes, because when we do the SSIS, we are going to have to drop all the constraints, depopulate all the tables, repopulate the tables, and then reapply the constraints. So it's easier if they're a separate script. Does that make sense?
I guess it's just turn off the foreign keys. Oh, well, you're not doing foreign keys.
We will do some foreign keys. So generally, basically, the way I've done a couple of classes in this, although they were a while ago, but they usually drop all the constraints, repopulate everything, and then reapply all the constraints. You're right, you could probably get by without worrying about you probably could just drop the foreign keys. The only table that has foreign keys is the fact table. But you don't want any hiccups along the way, I guess. And if you don't drop the primary key constraint, I don't think it re-enumerates. You know what I mean? Each time you go through, the keys would be different. Would that be right? Well, it wouldn't matter, but there is a way to reset the identity. But anyway, alter table dim date. Actually, I should have just pasted. Okay, so we have one more. This one's a little different. So I'm going to do fact. Oops. Grant, and we'll call the PK fact grant. Now, what I need to do in here is I need the, although it probably doesn't matter on the order, but I'm going to do dim employee key, comma, all of them, right? Yeah, dim client key. Comma, dim grant type key. Comma, and I'm going to break the line just so that it's on screen. So we did grant type, dim grant key, dim date key. I think that's all. So its key is a composite key of all the keys of the dim tables. And then we do all of the foreign keys. which are you have in the fact table, you have a foreign key for each one of the things contained in the primary key. So I'm going to alter table fact grant, add constraint, FK. So the first one was employee. What? I'm going to cut and paste this when I get there, yeah. So foreign key. And it is dim employee key, not EM. And I'm going to add a third line. References dim employee. And then basically we can cut and paste this and just substitute for each of them. So I'll call it second one dim client key, and dim client key, and also dim client here. Cut and paste can be a little dangerous if you miss something. So after client, there was grant type key. So I'm going to do grant type, dim grant type key. There's probably a faster way to do this. So we got grant type, grant key. One advantage to naming them all here too is, again, you know, we're using the same kind of naming pattern, so it's fairly easy to know what they are when you need to drop them. And so we got grant and then just date. So I'm going to give you a moment on that, and then I'm going to run it, the whole script, and see what we end up with. And then we'll try to populate it. We'll try to do the SSIS to populate it, although we could just populate it here and then do it in the SSIS. That might be better. Actually, just populate it here in a minute. Let me know when you guys are ready to. You can run it whenever. But oh, well, if I run it, it'll change the screen a little. So. Where did you have to go? Where did you want to go? Double click there. I'll give it a go before these master. Begin and go. Be on it there. Go. You may not like it, I'm saying that. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
No.
Do we go?
they got an error when they
What did you give an
not the time primary.
Not the five primary key straight on. Notable column and table background.
Yeah, that's the only one I got too.
Did anybody else get the null error?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we have to say not null.
Where do we have to say not null?
So I think in the grant table,
Itself.
yeah, I think we have to say not null. It won't let you form a key on a nullable.
You don't have to do that on all the things that you.
No, because the identities can't be null. So I just did it for everything except that worked, yeah. I always forget that. It won't let you create a primary key on anything that could possibly be null.
I got another one. Foreign key references invalid table dim date key.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of potential errors in terms of typos. I'll help you with them here in a second. But while I do, I'm going to refresh databases.
Looks like you also have to do it on the money column because that deposit primary key.
I didn't do it as part of the primary key.
So you did.
No, I didn't include the money ones in there.
You cannot find
I thought I saw you cut that in the pack brand.
No, just the dim. So let's go down. Just dim employee key, dim client key, dim grant type key, dim grant key, and dim date key. So just the dimension table. Just part of the key.
There's already a name contact name that they.
If you name, they have to be unique. So make sure you name. So here's a fact grant and there's a fact grant.
Okay. So these have to be named.
They do, right. Yeah, you can't. Foreign key names and primary key names have to be unique throughout the database. They have to, you can't have anything else in the entire database named the same. So one of the things I want to do, so I've, what?
Yep, an error here. I'm trying to figure out what it means.
Okay, what does it say?
Foreign key FK dates. References invalid table dim date key.
So look at your dim table, your date table. Dim date key and identity. That actually
Yeah, it
should
looked
go
like
right.
it was alright. Let me see that. Dim date key is fine here.
So let's look at foreign key references. Did you change the table? Yeah, it looks like it. Alter table, dim date.
Well, it's let me see it right back.
Oh, is it the foreign key one? Yeah, foreign key.
Yeah, this one right here. Let's see, dim date key, that looks fine too. Background.
It does look okay. Alter table, background. So add constraint, FK date, foreign key, dim date key, references, dim date. Get rid of the key there.
Copy paste error.
I got, and that's on the object, because it does not exist to have permission.
Well, actually, so let's see, which one is it saying? It says it doesn't find the employee. So let's go up to the. So we got the employee. There's already not.
Because of every.
Start from the very top. No. If it executed successfully,
Oh, right.
you just need to,
Well, I thought I would execute, but that's a problem. I'm not.
just look at so it looks like it's there, it won't let you in there.
Yeah, because they say I don't have permission.
Well, you don't, you just, I think it's in the context you have to get, if your database is there,
So,
yeah. So I wanted to do a database diagram. Yeah. Okay. So invalid column. So and it's on well, actually, it's what we do.
Oh, spelling error. This is referencing in Louis. Yeah.
So I'm going to do a quickie diagram on this. So I'm just doing a new database diagram.
You
Gonna
can see that it looks like a pentagram.
Yeah. It's what they call the star layout, but
Are we going to do a snowflake? Or
no.
is it too much?
So the difference between this and a calendar, let me zoom this down. The difference between a snowflake and this is that a snowflake would probably have another fact table or something, and there would be a cluster around it as well. There might be a relation between that and this background. I mean, it just is a little more complicated. We could look, if you want to look online, some examples of snowflake. Snowflake is basically a little bit more normalized. This is just yeah, it's not particularly normalized. But this is what they call a star. So if you drew a, although it doesn't always have 5, right? This would actually give you kind of a you know, 5-pointed star. But you could have more dimension to it, so it's not always a 5-pointed star.
they ask why I create my diagram without relationship. Without connected. They're separate.
So did you run those other
Other
steps?
than,
All of these have to be done.
oh, that's why. Come again? Because of the edit.
Yeah, so you can't get rid of it, so let's do. This one. And then- Well, why is it not done? Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Refresh.
So I did that, and I am.
Yeah, make sure that the database you're trying to find is the same as your other one. Yeah.
So I'm not sure why this is.
So you have something where you're relating it back to itself. Let's look at your script.
It's saying,
It's saying it's related to itself.
yeah.
Dim
between-
grant and fact grant.
Yeah. So that's right here. But I don't see how it's relating to.
Well, so let's see what we got. So we got fact, dim grant key. That actually should be on.
Is it because it's? No, just.
I'm just looking to see if there's another alter table fact grant. Okay, you said it was
Dim grant and fact grant.
I was expecting to see one of these actually accidentally say fact grant. But I don't see that. Is that the only extra? You can cheat. I don't think it'll matter.
It says delete relationships.
Where's this at?
Oh.
I don't know where. Oh, you know what? So dim grant.
So undo.
Well, let's just.
So we can just alter it.
Yeah, let's just add it. So it's dim grant. We've got dim grant key there. So why is that not there? Let's go back to the script. So dim fact grant. FK grant. Dim grant key references dim grant. Key. So it's already there.
Do we need to, instead of add constraint, foreign key, maybe put foreign key, dim grant key references dim grant, dim grant key? That way we're not adding it, we're just saying.
Well, no, so you have to add it.
Okay.
That actually should work. I think it's because I don't see why that is. Close the document. Without saving it. I don't see anything wrong with yours. So. Try one more time and see if it does the same thing.
Make it diagram?
Yeah, make a diagram.
Okay.
See if it did the same thing.
That table is.
It did, then I mean, no, so that's weird.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to save this diagram, though we don't necessarily have to. Anyone else having issues?
Yeah.
So let's populate these here before we do the SSIS. We may not get to the SSIS until tomorrow. That's fine. Or not tomorrow. Whenever. How would you populate? And one of the things I would say is save this script because we'll be using parts of it for the SSIS. How would we populate the employee table? So we've got in the employee, we've got the, we need the employee key. We need the employee hire date. All of those are in employee. So we just need a join to get the position. Right? So I'm just going to do insert into dim employee. Generally, what I have found when you're populating these, it's not hard to get the data for the dimension tables, but it can be a nightmare to get it into the fact table. So I'm going to, from dim employee, I'll just pull the columns over. And again, the dim employee key you need to get rid of because you can't insert into an auto number. I'm going to break this just so it's all on screen a little better. And I'm going to select employee key, employee hire date, employee annual salary. You could. And position name. All right. From, and here we do from community assist .dbo.employee. And let's do it as an E inner join. And so we want to do it as community assist DBO dot position P on, oh, and actually we need to do, before we do in position, we need to do employee position. So let's call it EP. On E dot employee key equals EP dot employee key. Inner join now position community assist dot DBO dot position on P dot position key equals EP dot position key. Okay, I'll give you a moment on that. Now employee key is ambiguous, so I'll just do E dot. And position name is spelled wrong. There we go. So that should populate. I'll give you a minute, but that should populate the employee table.
There's not a waiver.
I see.
Why?
That's what I see myself. So this is,
It's just a drawing.
column.
So. So, yeah, actually, the shift is to,
What would you say?
and all the different Bob should have run. Yeah. So, right, so just run it from use master. You don't have to select it. Yeah, just run the whole script. Although is that, so you actually populated it too. That's fine. You should have fixed it and populated it. All right, I'm gonna try to run this. Yeah, so 7 rows, that's probably about right. There's not very many employees in here. I'm just going to test it, do select star from dim employee. So we have a number here. We have an employee key. Now, one of the employees, and this is fine, has 2 positions.
So they don't make 65 grand per position, they make 65.
By grand overall, yeah. Now, one of the things that could be a problem, if you were calculating this, is that it would be real easy to double that. I mean, by accident.
And if you're running a lot of numbers, you would know that that's small.
Yeah, you might not know that that's there. So those are things you have to be kind of aware of. All right, so we got employee. So let's do, the next one was client. So I'm going to do insert into, and as I said, especially these inserts when they work, let's keep them. Insert into dim client. And I'm going to get the columns. That's employee. There aren't very many that we asked about them, I don't think.
You get rid of dim client key, right?
Right, you get rid of dim, always get rid of the, if you're doing auto numbers, always get rid of the primary key. So almost everything about the client here can come from the person table. So there's no inner joins here. Just select same 3 fields. From community assist, DBO, dot person. Oh, and we also, there is an inner join. Got the zip code, right? So the zip code, now is the person date entered? What is the name in the person table? It doesn't like person date entered, so I must have called it something else.
Person last first.
No, let's see, like, I just want person
Person entry date.
Person entry date.
So this is where we need to.
This time, it doesn't matter what it's called in the dim table, but it does matter what it's called here. So we do need one inner join with a person. So community assist, yeah. Dot DBO. Dot person address. Is that what I called it? Yes, I did. Okay. There's actually something else we should do with the client one, now that I think about it. There should be another inner join too. P dot person key equals PA dot person key. The thing is, this is going to include everybody, and we don't want to include everybody, do we?
No, we don't need those.
What?
Who do we want to name?
We only want to include the people that are in the client. So I'm going to do
Who actually?
who actually requested. So I'm going to do another inner join. So, right, so I'm going to do a inner join grant request. So again, community assist .dbo .grant request. On p.person key equals gr.person key. That'll limit it to them. And then because some people have, and we maybe should have done this, well, it wouldn't have mattered on the other one, but I'm going to also select distinct.
Do you think Mr. P on the person thing?
What?
Mr. P.
Alias.
Yeah, because it's in multiple tables, so it's an ambiguous column, so person key. I'm doing it on distinct because some people applied for multiple grants,
Wouldn't a
and
person,
we just want to know that.
wouldn't a person only be in the person table and personality table if they applied for grants?
No, because all the donors are there, and all the employees are there too, actually.
Oh, I see.
So if they applied for a grant, they'll be in the grant request table. So this will only return the ones that have applied for grants. We want to limit that. There's other ways you could do that. You could also do this with where person key in and do a subquery for that too.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
Plus it probably also remove duplicates from having people doing multiple grants.
right. Actually, the subquery automatically removes duplicates, although distinct does the same. So, because we're not asking for grant specific information, so you should get the same as. So 88 rows, is that about what you got?
Yep.
Okay,
I got 3 minutes.
you got what?
2 minutes.
Yeah, let's see.
It's on the person key.
You got, due to distinct, insert
I've done
into.
that.
Oh, you did do select distinct, person address.
Yeah, and I think it would all,
Person
I
entry.
think it will also stop
And
with this
community
one.
assist studio person. And then join address studio person address.
Does it matter if I ran this before this starts?
Okay, it's only one.
And then.
Yeah, if you ran it before, it would have populated it twice.
So should I drop the table? And
No, you don't have to drop the table. If you totally, instead of, you could just do a delete, or you can do truncate. Truncate, I'm not gonna, but you could say truncate dim. I think you have to say truncate table, dim client. What that would do, truncate is the same as say wipe all the data. It's a really dangerous command.
I'm just gonna comment that out there.
Yeah. But we will use this actually when we you do the SSIS. After you drop the constraints, you truncate all the tables. So you empty it out before you refill it. And you refill it with the current data.
Do you need that also on?
What?
Do you need that on dim employee as well?
Well, not right now. I just wanted to say if you totally screwed up the numbers,
that's not allowing because it's referencing the foreign key.
shouldn't be a foreign key in.
Dim client's got a foreign key, didn't we make things better?
No, there shouldn't be any foreign. There's all the foreign keys should be in the background.
Okay, so
Compute table in the client. Where is there a foreign key? It doesn't make sense. Actually, because, all right, so if you can't truncate it, can you delete? So let's just delete from dim file, with no where across. Just try that, see if it'll do that. Okay.
Okay, so then,
I know why the primary keys and all those have to be dropped. If you use truncate, it won't do it if there's any key constraints.
this won't work.
Any key constraints.
Okay, so just run the insert again and.
Yeah, run the insert again and hopefully,
80 rows?
yeah, 80 to 88. Mine could be a little different than yours.
Great.
80 is probably fine.
Yeah.
Because I keep adding junk to mine, as we do.
It's still got duplicates on the person key. Even though distinct is in there, it's got
No, it
34 and
does
34
have, it does have.
and 45.
Because their entry date is different, which doesn't make sense. Oh, you know why? There's still going to be some duplicates in there
Because of the difference.
because of the zip code.
So it's people that moved.
People that moved or have more than one address that had a business and but let's let it be. But yeah, I forgot about that. Because we added the zip code, there will be some duplication. And that's something, again, to be aware of when you're doing this. If somebody has more than one address, they'll be in there twice. Unless it's in the same zip code. Distinct won't get rid of that. Did yours?
I didn't do it the same on that. The only basic.
But you did the subquery, so right? So
Yeah, but it's still gonna have
The duplicate.
person address thing duplicate.
okay, well, we'll let it be for now.
I don't even have a distinct person key.
Okay, so but I think the select does do distinct by default. But you had 88 rows too,
Mine runs at 88.
which is what mine does, so. We'll let it be for now. So the next table we need to populate is the grant one. I wonder if we should do the grant type one first. Let's do the grant type one first. Dim grant type. And this one is, as I recall, has very little in it. So we just need to get the grant type key and the grant type name, which is easy enough. This one actually doesn't have any joins. Whoa, we just wiped that out. So it's basically just select those two fields. From Community Assist DBO grant type. So it has 18 rows, and that's about right. And I do the selects mostly just to confirm my ever-doubting mind that I got the right stuff. Now, we added some extras. You might have, I forget when we added those oh, we did, I did a little, import wizard thing. So if you don't have as many, that was just from a sample one day. Okay, so now let's do the last one. Last two are the dates and the grants. Let's do the date one next. So insert into dim date. And I'm going to bring in, so I'll just drag the columns over. Now you can get, sometimes I do these things with the date one can get really complicated. Sometimes I break it up not only into year and month, but into quarter, you know, and into hour, minute, and things. So you can get fairly complex with these. Ours is going to be fairly simple. So we can do select grant review date. That one's fine, but then what we need is basically year, grant review date, and then month. With function. Okay, from community assist, EBO, grant review. Now I'm hoping that we get there are links and things. I'm hoping that we, you know, the data. We'll have to see. As I said, we might have to come back to this. What I don't know is if it needed to be distinct. I think this is okay. So the other thing about these data warehouses is I only do them in the summer. So it's been since last summer since I did one. So we'll see how it works. Okay. And then I'm going to do, we need one more, which is the dim grant. And then we need to populate the fact table. And that'll be it for today, I think. We'll save this. I'll post this script. Do you want it GitHub or the blog? Blog.
And would you like to add some more comments?
Comments?
Yes, because I believe the assignment.
I could do a couple of comments on it.
Yes.
Okay, so let's do insert into dim grant. So, and then I'm going to get the columns. Get rid of that. Oh, that's dim date. I just drug the wrong one in. Is that all I put in there?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be easy, but I'm not sure that that's correct.
Is this grant request key or is this grant key? It's grant request key.
It may be. Did I just write grant key though when I made the table?
And just bring which
Yeah, so we'll do it as select grant request key. Oh, community assist. So one of the things that I might do between now and Thursdays, I might test this to see if we need to make some changes in it. Okay, so now the fact table, and the fact table, as I said, is the hardest. So I'm going to insert into fact grant. Okay, so part of what we need to get, so I'm going to pull up the fact grant fields. And get rid of, actually, so we need all those fields. There's nothing to get rid of here. So for one thing, what we need to do is we need to select all of these fields, right? So let's see if I can get this going from, so we need to do it from dim employee. Where, oh, from dim employee. And we're going to need lots of inner joins, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. How did I do it before? Oh. This is how I did it before, whether it's right or not. Community assist, DBO dot employee. So I think I did it on DE dot employee key equals E dot employee key. Okay. Client key. So inner join. I'm just trying to think of where I want to go next. Community assist dot DBO. So let's go to grant request next. So I'm going to say on DE dot employee key equals GR dot employee key. What? There should be an employee key. Oh, you know what? So it'd be grant request. I'm wondering if I should go from client before employee. I'm trying to think of the logic of this, which is different than last time.
You might want to link the employee to the person and then start from there.
Yeah, but so we could go to employee to person, but we don't actually need to go to person, I don't think.
You need person to look up,
Okay, now I'm confused too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to start with from dim client. Well, actually, yeah, so dim client, and then I'm going to do this from grant request. And I'll call this DC and this one GR. If I can get the map in my head right. So I'm going to do it on DC dot person key equals GR dot person key. Right, so the relating it to that. We could also do inner join. And then the other thing, community assist DBO dot grant request review or grant review. Huh. Okay, so we can't do GR again. Let's just call it REV. On REV dot so we got I'm just trying to think of where I want to join here. Person key. So maybe before I do that, I'm going to do inner join. I'll go over this. I'm thinking this through as I go, and these are hard. Inner join dim employee. Except employee, yeah, I can do that. No, the employee's not coming until the grant request review. We've got dim client. Maybe dim grant. Some of you might get there faster than me. There should be a grant request key. So we got a grant type key. I think I can do inner join grant dim grant type. On grant type key equals like gr dot grant type key. So we got employee, we got grant.
You have two different keys.
Yes, this one I do because I named them differently.
It's okay to do.
Yeah, it's okay to do. As long as they really are the two that relate, yeah.
Key.
So we got to review. something I probably should have included. So let's do, so review. What did we do in our, yeah. Or actually REV. All right, what do we have left? We have the date. Is the date the only thing we have left? It's the only thing that's complaining. That may not work. Because I'm matching dates, which could be duplicated. I don't know if that'll work. I honestly am not sure this will work, but yeah, let's see if I can get it all on screen. Although before you spend a lot of time copying this, you should let me run it and see if it blows up.
Or on mine, I get nothing.
I got 1,085 rows, which should be too many.
Get 0 rows.
1,085.
You did, yeah. That doesn't make sense to me. So it's duplicating something. I think it might be this last thing. We might need to make a couple of adjustments. It looks like every grant is in there multiple times.
It's the date.
It's the date, yeah. So how do I mess with the date key? Because it has to do it as,
It's like it's
yeah, everything is in there a couple of times, like several times. So I wonder if what we need to do is add the grant review key to the date, even though it's not actually a date. Let's save our scripts. I'll fix this for next time because it's going to take me a while.
Why would it, if we wrote the same thing, why would I have 0 effective and you have 10 effective?
I don't know. If you have 0 affected, there's something in there that doesn't match.
Well, I'm trying to match it to yours, but I'm trying to edit it to see if I missed something. Thank you.
I don't know if I can get the whole thing
Oh,
up
I
there.
see. I see what I did.
You can. Because mine is also 0 effect, then.
Yeah, well, so this last one isn't
Okay,
working
29
anyway.
2970 was- I had the key instead of date for that very last.
Oh,
dot.
right. And there were no matches.
Yeah, that's why it was just not,
Tell you what, I will post everything except this last query, this last insert, and then I'll play with this last insert. And what we'll do is I'll figure out a way to make it work properly. So let's see what I did on the Metro Alt one. Well, it doesn't have the inserts. This one I did join on the dates. I will look at it because this is obviously not going to work. I mean, it will actually kind of work. It just won't give us real data.
Mine also 0.
Yeah, as I said, don't worry about it. This last one isn't working, so I'm going to redo that last query. So I think all the dims, although I will post it, but maybe I'll even post the last one. You guys can look at it too and see if you can figure out. I'm going to put a comment, this isn't working. No, it didn't work. It gave me rows, but it's the wrong rows. It's yeah, that's fine. As I said, that the whole
So what we're trying to do with that is because all of these tables don't join up normally, we have to use the other database to get the join sort.
well, so we're getting the data from other. Now, actually, we should be able to get most of these from the dim tables.
Okay.
So it may be that I'm referring too often to the not dim tables.
Because of the dim tables.
You know,
all have the
actually,
data that you need.
yeah, they do. All that's true. Let me look at something. We probably don't need anything. The only thing we need from is the grant request amount and the grant allocation amount.
Okay.
Everything else should be gettable from the DIMS. And I think that's why I'm not. So insert into fact grant. Can we do it where fact grant?
We do 2 inserts. Like, would it be worth it to break it up? We get the grant request stuff out of there.
Well, no, I don't know. You can't do 2 inserts.
Okay.
But can we do, so the DIMS relate to the fact table. Let me try one more. So I'm going to delete from fact grant. All right. Yeah, I know. Shouldn't have that many rows. Do you guys want me to try through this again, or do you guys want to wait and let me do that on my own? And
Yeah, you work it out.
I like learning.
yeah, well,
I'm gonna try doing it myself.
if you guys, yeah. So the basic thing is you need to get all these things, all the data from these dim tables into that. And I think part of what's happening is that I'm pulling the data both from the dimension tables and from the community assist tables. Right? So we need the community assist grant that. I mean, we need the grant review to get these two amounts. Everything else should come from the dim tables. Wonder what would happen if I just did distinct here. That would be an easier solution. And I still get 1,085 rows. So that isn't the problem. These, as I said, I've always fought with these. I usually get it done, but getting the fact table populated correctly is a pain because they're complicated. So we want we could simplify this if we didn't do grant request amount and just do grant allocation amount. Though we might want to know.
If it's doubling the inserts on the dates, would it specify which table the insert comes from by adding the alias to it? Would that limit?
That might. So instead of doing, still the review date, we are getting it from the DD and then from the review. But the review, it is actually coming from the review, right? So the trick is there's no key I can use there. And I think part of what's happening, let's look at the data again. See what we can see what's happening. Part of it is, so this is the employee, the client, the grant type, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them.
There's 10 unique dates.
It just doesn't make, why are we getting a, not a tenfold, literally a tenfold duplication?
The 6 and the 4 sound right.
That sounds better.
That was the original query that I had written.
Still, though, if we look at community assist, so we're getting most of this from grant review. And we get 89 rows in grant review. So let me, as I said, I'll post this. You guys are welcome to work on it, and not that you need it, but bonus points to anyone that figures it out. And I will work on it also, and I'll have it ready for you. I was trying to follow this, although it's always possible that the script I had here was a mess too. I think, so there's a possibility that in dim date, we need to add something else to link it. You know, like the grant, the grant allocation key or something, the grant review key. It goes to the grant review date. That's its relation to its table. I will play with this. As I said, it could take me a while, and I'm a little perplexed.
It's good to sometimes make a link to it and see.
I read that, and I don't know.
So I will post the stuff that we have. Now the fact table, I think, is well constructed. I think it's just a matter of figuring out how to populate it. The date table might need something else, like for a something to tie it more easily. I will look at it. You might look online. Dimension date tables are often an issue, and
Because that was where some overlap was happening, right?
yeah, I think it's partially. In fact, populating the fact table can be a pain. I mean, it's just generally a pain. I'm just doing some quickie comments. What? I think so, it's all, because I need to fix this. Worst case scenario, we'll go with the 1,035 rows, but the data that we get from the cube will be bizarre. So I will, actually, I'm just going to do Control A, Control C.
And this is, we did this instead of doing SSIS.
No, we're going to do SSIS too. Once we get the scripts working, we'll create an SSIS thing that runs the scripts and does a couple of other things too.
Cool. I'm looking up stuff. There's a lot of documentation on it.
There is. There's tons.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Steve,
Yeah.
can we go through the table to add the constraint?
Yes. Well, basically, because we need to drop the
You can't
constraints.
do it when you create the table.
You can, but it makes it harder to drop it.
Are there some grants that are allocated to 2 requests?
Are there somewhat?
Is that what?
Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's nature.
Here's what I'm trying to figure out. So, well, I'm not sure that's the correct number because 96 is the number of grants that have been put in, but not all of them.
I feel like I can figure it out. I just wish that I knew more of what I'm looking at.
It says 89.
Is it basically saying for this table, it's got all of these keys that connect to all of the
Right.
dimensions? and then
So
it's
we
saying-
need to bring in all those dimension keys.
Yeah,
So
and then it needs to be filled because the dimension keys are just renamed actual keys in the.
well, they're all so they're all auto numbers from their own tables, right? So we need to get all of those in here. So basically, the primary key needs to be all of those dimensional keys. And then we also need to get, the only two things that aren't keys that we need to get in are the amount, the grant request amount and the allocation amount. I'm thinking this whole thing might work if I drop this one, because I think what the duplication is between the two, the grant request and the grant allocation. Also,
I wonder why that is. Is it because they requested?
or it could be the grant review date,
Oh, because they got different dates.
because it's
but
not a
same-
primary key. So I will, if you're researching this, if you want to figure it out on your own, I would look on like populate, first I would look like on date dimensions to see if there's something I did wrong in the date dimension. The second thing that I would do is look under populating fact tables.
I've got a page right here that's those two topics, and it's saying that it's got much more, contains much more other attributes because of the year and month
Right.
and date.
So maybe it's correct.
Plus day and month names and other.
Actually, though, what I get from a quickie reading of that is that maybe it's correct.
That's great.
Although it's doing some left joins as opposed to, and I wonder if I want to do that.
Another page was doing that too. Another MSDN, Microsoft Social.
Let me look at that, because that actually may be, instead of inner joins, maybe I need left
It
joins.
says because they are left joins, the fact table rows without corresponding dimensional rows will result in null dimensional keys in the fact table. The is null, then convert these nulls to zeros. It's just, I guess it's just explaining why it has a bunch of is nulls before the selected.
I will look. I think you're in the right area there.
Do you want me to send this to you?
What is the page?
Yeah, SQL Server Central Articles Design and Theory. I just looked up the populating fact table script,
Yeah.
and it's the first one. Populating fact
Okay.
tables on SQL Server.
I can find that. It should come up on mine too.
Okay.
All right, so labels 224. ITC 224. Done. Publish. By Thursday, I will have an answer.
We had a
Although I might ask you guys for answers first if you figured it out. The left joins might be, we might be needing to exclude some things. So. I'm going to save this. I'll also post it at some point.
You can just go in and out of that closet every now and then. What's in there?
Tools, server stuff. All right, so we'll call this for the morning, and we'll fix it and finish it next time.